So I'm going to do a quick intro. Thank you guys for hopping on. I'm super excited for tonight. This is going to be our final virtual 10 monitor side chat of 2020 stories from Shark Tank. And then we're going to follow it up with a little networking breakout. So it's great. Everybody's already chatting. So I can tell tonight's going to be a lot of fun and we're going to get to know some of our fellow alums better. The event tonight is being put on by the Tufts Entrepreneurs Network, also known as 10, which is part of the Tufts Entrepreneurship Center in partnership with the Office of Alumni Relations, Amy, and team. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, the Tufts Entrepreneurs Network is a group that serves as a resource for alumni in the technology and startup spaces and helps alumni looking to transition from the corporate world into technology and startups. Thanks to our extended 10 and TEC team, Mark Kesslin, Iggy Molliver, Brittany Sokoloff, Josh Goldman, Kevin Oye, Josh Kappelman, Amy McDonald, Luke Frazier, and Elaine Chen. And thank you to our panelists today, Liz and her son Jordan, who are going to talk about their experience on Shark Tank, which is super exciting. We're going to let them kind of discuss their experience, and then we'll also leave some time for Q&A for sure. You can pop your questions in the chat box at the bottom. If you want to, originally I wasn't planning on having people kind of call out their questions just to keep everything kind of focused, but it looks like, a pretty respectful group. So if you do want to unmute and ask a question, I think that will be fine. Let's just get through the bulk of kind of hearing about their experience first. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Shelby Schultz, and I'm an alumna from the class of 2012 and a member of the 10 National Chapter, as well as the Tufts Alumni Chair in Austin. And I'm part of 10 because I'm inspired by the entrepreneurial problem-solving spirit present in Tufts students. And I believe that it is important that we continue to foster this tenacity and learn from each other. And so without further ado, I'd like to introduce our panelists today. Liz Charm and Jordan Long, founders of Surprise Cake, who appeared on a recent episode of Shark Tank that you guys saw a little clip of in the event registration. And I'll let them kind of, if you guys want to kick us off and tell us about your business and kind of how you got to be on Shark Tank to start, that'd be awesome.
Okay, well, first I'll just mention, which I don't think I did earlier, my father actually was a professor at Tufts, and he worked he was chairman of the chemical engineering department, and while he was working there, he invented a product that my mother and he ended up breaking off, and they started a business. Charm Sciences is the name of it now. And so I grew up in a house with two entrepreneurs. So it was always something, having my own business was definitely something that I was inspired by them, and it was always something I wanted to do. I went to law school, but that was not my passion. And so bottom line, I had a bunch of kids, and I was always trying to, actually my parents always surprised me as a kid. My two sisters and I, they always surprised us for our birthday. Surprise was always a big deal for them to put some kind of an element of surprise into our day. So when I had my kids, I knew that was an important thing that I wanted to carry on. And I had 5 kids. So by the time it got to be a challenge to come up with a new surprise. And one night before my oldest daughter's 12th birthday, I actually dreamed that I hid her present inside of her birthday cake that year. And so the next morning I woke up and I did that. I put her cell phone, she was going to get a cell phone that year, inside of the cake. And I called the cake and it rang and everybody loved it. And so I thought, this is my chance to have my business that I've always wanted to have. And so I started making cakes for the neighborhood, for anyone I knew and they would bring a gift and I would hide it inside a bunch of layers and frost it up. And I was selling them, these junky cakes made out of Duncan Hines, because I didn't know how to bake really. And I was selling them for like $125 or $150, but they had the gift in them. And had a pretty good business going. And I thought, okay, it's time to scale it up. And when I went to do that, I came across the Kinder Egg law, which prohibits putting non-edible things inside of confectionery. So that was a problem. So at that point, Jordan was in engineering school, and I thought, we got to figure this out, because I was devastated. And it occurred to, we sort of figured out that if instead of putting the gift directly into the cake, you put it into a stand, then you don't have to worry about the issue, the problem is solved. And so Jordan helped me do that. He helped engineer the product. And so we started, he graduated, and by the time we graduated.
Yeah, well, so I was a sophomore in college when she came across that Kinder Egg law, and she called me up and she was devastated. And we figured it. We talked over the phone and tried to come up with creative ways to get around it. Eventually, we came to the idea of hiding it within the cake stand, which would make it legal and also really clean as well. The way she was doing it previously, you would cut into the cake and it would be like this,
a mess.
Your gift would be, with cake and frosting and everything. So I took a semester off from school, Boston, and we started to work on a design for the cake stand. The cake stand was actually, the design for it was based on the Jack in the Box children's toy. It has a spring, it works. The mechanism that the Jack in the Box uses, we just took that and modified it to be used as a trigger for our stand. And then over the course of my last 2 years at school, we did prototyping. We went through probably 30, 40 different prototypes. We took a trip to China where we manufacture it. This was in 2018, well before COVID. We met with a few different manufacturers. We vetted them. And by the time I graduated, we had our first version of the product in Boston ready to sell. And that was the summer of 2018. So that was about 2 years ago now, a little over 2 years.
I just so you know, it's unclear whether I came up with this idea so that I could go on Shark Tank. I always wanted to go on Shark Tank. And this was just, I was looking for some way to just have a great business, because I watched the show and it's like, oh my God, if only I could get, it just looked like such a great experience. Really, it's confusing to me which came first, the idea or the show. So I knew from the time we started the business, I've been talking about Shark Tank. And from the beginning, I've been told, just let it go. It's not time yet. It's not time. Because if you watch the show, they're all about, what are your sales? Do you have IP? And it took us time to get that. So we actually got our patent was issued April 21st of 2020. And also our revenue kind of exploded starting
So what
January.
We started selling in summer 2018, and we were obsessed with the product. We spent a lot of time designing it. Thought it was amazing. We made this professional product video to advertise on Facebook, and we started running Facebook ads that summer, and no traction, nothing. It took us almost 2 months to sell our first organic product, and it was definitely very slow from the start. But over time, what started happening was our early customers, we made it a point to reach out to them and get their experiences with the product, because we had a feeling from the beginning that the content that could be generated from this product, because it's being used in a group setting during a birthday where usually something's being filmed, that content would be gold. Fair enough, as we started getting in customer reaction videos, and we started to, that's really what started everything for us. We started using that as ads, and things just took off from there.
Yeah. So once we got our revenue. Oh, sorry. Did you want to say something?
Well, I was just going to say that's if for those people on the call who haven't seen the episode yet, which I highly recommend you watch. That was one of the best parts, I thought, of the pitch that you guys gave, is you put presents in each cake that was very specific to each of the sharks. And to your point, Jordan, like that organic reaction, like that was very tangible. Like you could really feel that.
Yes. We actually also, we did show the sharks. We had like a 15-second compilation video of real customers using it. And the sharks loved it.
Yeah.
The producers did tell us the most boring thing you can do on television is to show a television on television. So they didn't want to show the monitor. They try not to do that, unfortunately. But those are some of that's great content, and you can find that on our Instagram. We post every day, just the funniest customer reaction videos we get. Post those onto our Instagram. But yeah, the organic, the real reactions is everything.
So basically, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna go ahead and finish your thought, but I was gonna ask.
Say that. So I really was like from the get-go. Constantly I would say, "What about Shark Tank? What about Shark Tank?" And they kept saying, my team would shut me down. And so once in April, we finally got the patent was issued. And I said, "This is it." Oh, actually, my father was very ill, so I had to sort of put it on hold for a couple months. And then in June, he was really ill, and I thought, I need something to keep me going here, because it was really depressing. And I said to Jordan, I said, I want to sit you down. This was on a Tuesday. I made him sit with me, and it was only like a 10-minute. They weren't doing in-person interviews because of COVID. You only can apply online. So I made him sit with me for like 10 minutes. It's a quick, the initial thing is really quick. And he filled out the thing online for 10 minutes or so, and he sent it off. And that was a Tuesday. Wednesday, the next day, and he put down my phone number. And the next day, Jordan pranks me. He gives me a phone call that's a prank call. And so I hang up, and like within a minute of that prank call, I get another call, and again it said caller ID unknown. So I answered it, and I swore when I answered the phone, because I thought it was him calling it, and it was the woman answered. She says, "Hi, this is what was her name? This is Angela from I'm calling from Shark Tank." And I thought it was him pranking me, and I just kept swearing. I was so rude to her, and it was crazy, and I really just didn't believe her. And it took like 5 minutes of me going on, and she was cracking up. Apparently, thank God, she knew about the prank that he had just done. It was some TikTok prank that everyone was doing to their parents that day. So I actually think that worked in our favor, because no one has ever talked to her that way. Who she's called to say that they're interested. They really liked our submission video. Anyhow, so she finally, I believed her, and anyhow, so that was crazy. But then, okay.
Well, that's how it started.
Yeah, that's how it all started from that. So
yeah.
And then what was the preparation for you guys to so you just got the patent, you just got a call back, and then what?
Okay, so then she called and said, "This is the deal. She gave us 2 weeks to submit a 10-minute video telling our story. We had to do a whole long application too, but the video is what they show to their panel, to their executive producers. And if you for those of you who are actually interested in trying to get on Shark Tank, the best thing to do, there's a 2020 episode where they do the best, I think it's the best of Shark Tank, and they show the behind the scenes of what that process is like on their end. And they show, they really go through what they look for, because you can have a great product, everything is great, but 50% of it is the product. They have to really like the product, and has to be television worthy and all that. But it's really, the other 50% are the entrepreneurs. And you have to have something that they like, that makes you different, that's kind of the spiel that I give you. Anyhow, so if you're really interested in getting on, that would be something to look at, to the 2020 episode. The 2020, it's a television show.
We didn't see it before we applied, right. And then we watched it after we did the whole Shark Tank thing. Like, wow, we nailed it.
Yeah,
everything really. Exactly. The first thing what they want to see is that they can see the product right away.
Easily, yeah.
And our product's very visual, so
right
off the bat, we started the video with the thing popping up, and then we popped up behind the counter and did our little intro. We worked in our personalities as best we could.
Right.
We every time we did a cut, we had a different funny apron on that said some kind of funny thing.
It's about being yourself and showing your personality, and having a cool product, and really the thing they kept stressing is don't overvalue when you do if you're going to go on, don't overvalue your company. You really, they hate that. They really don't like when you go on as an ad, because you want an advertisement for you don't really want a deal. That's what people do. They overvalue the company, so they can't, no one's going to give them a deal. And I don't know, does that inhibit you from getting on the show?
Yeah, they're not looking for people who are just looking for an advertisement.
Right.
They want, especially this season when there's a lot
Right.
of businesses that are struggling and need the investment to keep going. They really wanted people there that were there to make a deal. The producers, they just really wanted us to at least get an offer. They don't want to, force you into taking a deal.
Right.
But they wanted everyone there in good faith that they were there to
Make a deal.
To make a deal.
Yeah.
So are the numbers that you guys put in this is what we're seeking kind of at the beginning of the pitch, did they vet that before
Yeah.
you presented?
So as far as, we
changed it.
We changed it a few
a lot.
times throughout the process. Monthly, they ask you for your updated numbers for the business, sales, and all that. So they're constantly asking you for more information. And in addition, so this was in June. In June, we had like homework due every couple of weeks, different things for the set, different things for our pitch, different just business updates, all these different things. And they would constantly tell us, you're not on until you're on, even after you have your flights booked and you're in Vegas, even after you pitch to the Sharks,
you're not on until you see yourself on television.
No guarantees. And actually, one of the craziest things is in our after we had gone to the stage where we knew we were going to go out to Vegas to film, we had a legal briefing with Shark Tank, and they reiterated that you're not on until you see yourself on. They've seen, things do happen where there's breaking news, for example, and at 8 o'clock on a Friday night, something could happen and they'll have to cut to live news coverage. And at the time,
that's what happened to us.
June,
that happened to us.
But it actually happened to us.
We are the losers.
The election
happened to.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's a big part of our story.
Yes.
Is that it didn't get shown in prime time at the 8 o'clock hour. It got bumped to 10 because Joe Biden's acceptance speech. And then Joe Biden delayed until 10. And then he actually interrupted the Shark Tank episode with his speech. So there's a little,
and it didn't even get aired.
The
episode didn't even get aired in half the country.
Yeah.
We looked it up. Normally the viewership is like 6 million for a Shark Tank. Ours was like 1.8 or 1.6 or something for our episode, because it was just, and people who DVR it, when they went back to look at what they DVR'd, it was election coverage. It was not Shark Tank.
Yeah.
It all really, that part of it was really.
It was a tough day.
Yeah, that was really.
So have you guys seen any change in the business since the episode aired, even though it was not what you fully expected?
Definitely. The most amazing thing about it, the best thing that we found is that it just gives you all the validation you need to approach other businesses, media companies. It gives you validation. You put it right there on the website. And so that's been really huge for us.
And we have there are a bunch of knockoffs out there of our product.
Yeah.
So we're now, as seen on Shark Tank, we're the only one, although they're probably going to start putting that on their product, but that separates us from all of the knockoffs at this point also. That was a big thing.
That's awesome. We have a question here from the attendees. Did you research the kind of deals you could possibly get involved in, like an equity, debt, or convertible deal? Which I think they only offer equity deals on Shark Tank, right?
Well, so the deal is with Shark Tank, they can't give you less. I don't know if they say this on every episode, but it took us a while to actually hear it. If whatever your ask is, they can't give you less than that in terms of the dollar amount. You can increase the amount of equity that they can ask for more equity, but they have to give you the dollar amount.
Right. And they can give it to you as debt as well.
Right.
So for example, if you ask for $200,000 for 10% of the company, they can give you $100,000 for 10% of the company and $100,000 loan at whatever interest rate. So
Interesting. I didn't realize there was that level of flexibility.
yeah,
yeah.
you just have to, you can't go below the ask or else
Right.
it'd be-
That was my question. What exactly were you looking for? Did you have something?
Well, so here's the other, we actually started when we were our original submission video, we said we want 100,000 for 10%. That's when we were thinking, okay, we're just talking about our cake stand.
well,
That's all.
and also just to get onto the show.
And to get onto the show, because they from the beginning said, whatever you do, don't overvalue your company. So we kept it low. But then if you watch enough of the episodes, they make it clear and that they don't want you to come on if you're just a product. They're always like, oh, you're just a product. We're looking, I want to invest in a brand. And frankly, we from the beginning, our vision for our company was that this isn't just we don't want to just sell a cake stand. Ultimately, we want to sell the cakes that go on it, as well as the gifts, to curate gift pods and make money off of the gifts that go into the pod. So we had an idea for how this would be how we would scale it up. And so when we ran the numbers, as far as what we know, as far as how many people don't buy a stand because they can't buy a cake from us, because our name is Surprise Cake. So many people come to our site expecting to buy the stand as well as the cake. And when they can't buy the cake, they don't buy the stand. We figured, what is it, 30%? We're losing out on 30% of the sales on that because of that. So if we sell the cakes, we'll increase our sales for our stand by 30%, as well as making the money. We put out a questionnaire to all our over 100,000 followers and asked how many of you would buy a cake from us if we offered cakes, and 85% of them said, definitely, what's taking you so long? So we thought, okay, we based on all of that information, we came up with a valuation of $200,000. Of asking for $2 million. Sorry.
2.5. So we asked for $200,000 for 8%, and I mean, we came to that number based on our projected revenue this year as a 2.5 times multiple of that. And it's so hard to value a startup at this. We've grown like 700% this year from last year, because in 2018 we barely did anything. So that's how we came to our valuation. We did it we looked at it as a multiple of revenue, as well as a multiple of our projected profit as well.
And we actually had we had our company valued in order to go on Shark Tank this season, to actually be on the stage. You had to have equity. You had to have some stock, because they had to limit who could, because of the COVID situation. People didn't bring on their family members to be assistants. You'll see this season, it's very limited as far as who shows up there. Like, we had to wear a mask, and we went inside of our cake that we were in. We had to put a mask on right. The only time we didn't have a mask was when we were doing our pitch. Right before, we had to all wear masks. So I actually transferred some stock to Jordan right beforehand. That was required, and we got valued. So based on the valuation, that was part of the how we came up.
Yeah, we had a professional advise us as well. But I don't know who said it, but John, I think that you can't approach Shark Tank as typical angel investors. They're not. It's a much different approach. We are fortunate enough that we're in a position where the business is making enough money to fund itself, so we weren't starving for money. So we weren't looking to get one of those Shark Tank deals where you're giving away a third-year company. We wanted to hold on to it as much as we can. If we went and we approached it as if we were going the traditional venture capital's route, and how they would value our company based on our numbers. But the sharks, being the sharks, they expect to get it at a premium because of who they are and what kind of value they say they bring. But we weren't. That's not something that we were comfortable doing.
Were you guys nervous? That's what I need to know.
Yeah, I mean, so we talked to a few other businesses.
I'm having trouble hearing you.
Oh, that's her watch.
Hi, Siri.
Sorry.
We talked to a few other people that pitched, and it was hard because no one did it the way we did it. We were stuck inside of a very tight cake for like 10 minutes before we popped up.
Not everyone saw the episode, but we hid inside of a gigantic, like 7-foot cake that my husband drove out to Las Vegas.
That's a whole
in the
different
U-Haul.
story. But yeah, so we didn't walk down the hallway. The most nerve-wracking part that we heard from the producers and we heard from all the other businesses is that what you don't see on television is that when you hit the carpet where you're talking, doing your pitch from, you actually have to stand there for 30 seconds while the cameras queue up and get everything in focus in there. And the entrepreneurs that we talked to that pitch said that felt like 5 minutes. You just got to stand there.
You can't look, you can't smile, you just like completely.
Well, yeah, and you get all the sharks just eyeing you up and down. So we were fortunate enough to avoid that by popping out of a cake. So it wasn't as nerve-wracking as it would be for other people, but it was definitely.
And I have to say the other thing that someone said right to us the night before, and it actually was true. The pitch, we could practice that. We knew that so well. I wasn't nervous for that so much. It was the rest of it. It's all ad lib. You don't know what they're going to ask you. But someone said once you start talking to the sharks, there are lights right on you. Their cameras all over, right next to your face. But the minute you start talking to them, it's like you're just having a conversation.
Yeah, it's
and
like a round table.
I was shocked at how easy it was to just, and I'm not good in public speaking. It was just, and Lori, I have to say, Lori was like our angel. She was wearing white. I think she was wearing white.
She was wearing all black, actually.
She was. It seemed like she was wearing white. She like almost had a halo about her. She was just so kind.
Yeah.
And Barbara was so scary. Barbara was so mean. And by the way, we were on there. We were on there for about 40 minutes. And they cut it down to 8 or 9 minutes. But there's so much more.
It's a time warp. You're in there.
Yeah.
It feels like 10 minutes. You walk out, you're in there for an hour.
Right. But
So
but Barbara was, and they all have their personas. They're definitely actors, and you'll see every episode they all have the same shtick. Each one has his shtick that they do, and they're true to themselves. And just Lori is just. I think also during COVID, they're much nicer. Like Mr. Wonderful this whole season, I doubt he'll tell anyone to take their idea and shoot it behind the shed like he does usually. They were just much nicer to people because we had to go through a 10-day quarantine.
He did tell me they didn't air it. He said, if you guys, I'm going to check up on you after this. If you're selling cakes, I'm going to shove it where the sun. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Mark Cuban says when you guys talk about baking the cakes, he said, don't always listen to your customers.
Yes.
Which I thought was a funny bit of advice because that's counterintuitive to like what most people think of as running a business.
Of course.
But I think he is right. And so we're taking that advice with a grain of salt. We understand the difficulties shipping cakes. We don't want to be baking cakes. We know what we're good at, and that's, manufacturing, the popping stand and branding and marketing that and selling that. But what we were hoping for was that two of the sharks, Mr. Wonderful and Barbara, they both own what they tout as successful cake businesses. And Mark even at one point said, you guys should just partner. And I'm like, yeah, exactly. But I don't think they want to get any more involved than they already are in those cake businesses because
I don't think it's going so well. So that's another strange thing. We, based on they do the update and everything looks so great, we thought, okay, this is perfect. They're gonna want to partner. We'll partner with them. Yeah. They were clear. The cake business is a nightmare. So apparently, it's not so wonderful.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, we want to. I mean, we could talk about this for a long time because I have a lot more questions, but there is a good question I think would be good for us to wrap up on because I know we want to break into some small networking groups. Would love if you guys wanted to stay for a little bit of that because I'm sure that like some of the people in this line would have questions for you. I know we have some, investors from the community on the line that you guys can talk all kinds of shop that's way above my head. Mm-hmm. But this question is good. So from Josh Goldman, how much of the benefit from being on Shark Tank is the actual investment and advice of the shark versus promotional value of being on the show, regardless of if they invest or not? And I think you guys probably have an opinion on that.
Yeah, well, for us, that's all we got was the promotional and the advice. The promotional value that it could have brought us could have been significantly better had it aired at the right time. And so we're hoping for.
It was okay. I mean, what was it? That weekend, like the night of the showing, the night of the airing, and the next night our sales went up. You know, we
Of
had-
course, yeah. There was, I mean, you still had a couple million people seeing it, but it wasn't the right audience. It wasn't their prime time
Right.
audience. It's a family show. That's why they showed it. That's why they put it at
Right.
8 and at 10
And-
o'clock. It's a much different show. That's when SNL is on and
And
whatever, you know.
we put a huge investment. We spent a bunch of money on the cake, on the show that we put on, as well as we put our business. We put our business on hold, basically preparing for. We really had to prepare for this for a couple months, and that was even. We got in at the end. Most people spend, I think, 6 months preparing. So yeah, there was a
Yeah.
huge cost. I mean, it was
Yeah,
only
there-
7 weeks ago. We're still seeing benefits of it by, like Good Morning America. We're going to be on, I don't know exactly what.
Yeah,
aspect of it.
that's the main value I think it brought us. Obviously their advice was good, and it made us take a step back and reconsider
Mhm.
shipping full-size cakes, but we took their advice, and we kind of we know we still think we know our business and our demand better than them. I'm constantly dealing with people coming to our website asking. I see the questions. I know what people want, and we are pretty set on this idea of creating a one-stop shop where people can come and buy the popping stand, a gift, and a cake, and send it to someone as a gift, like the same way you'd send an edible arrangement or bouquet of flowers. It will be a great gift idea for a birthday or anything. And so we are still working towards that in a slightly different way, in a scaled down version of what we were originally going to do, based on their expert advice. And then as far as the promotional value, it goes way beyond that 10 minutes of airtime you get. If you're smart, you use that as to pitch other media opportunities, to say, hey, we were just on Shark Tank. This is we're hot right now, and you can get a lot of organic coverage just by doing that.
Mhm.
I didn't think about that, but that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Awesome. I can't thank you guys enough for telling me how you didn't want to cry in front of Mark Cuban and giving us a lot of actual, like, real good business advice. I think, like, I do software sales, and I will say, like, staying true to your business and acknowledging that nobody knows as much about your business as you do is some of the best advice I've gotten when it comes to having confidence and presenting, and that translates into a whole lot of other things. So I totally agree with that. And I'm super excited to see what you guys do next.
Thanks.
Thank
They
you.
did say that that there's nothing like they like better than us proving them wrong, the Sharks wrong, and they'd love to do an update on us if we can do that. So
Right. So that's
Stay
what,
tuned.
if you saw the end of it, that's what we set it up
Yeah.
for. They're not always right. We're going to keep doing it, and we'll show them.
right.
That would be awesome.
Mhm.
Well, share it with all of us if you guys get to do an
Of
update.
course.
And I will be sharing the surprise cake. I own the episode. I bought it, so
Oh, cool.
I can share it with more people.
Okay.
Awesome.
Great.
Awesome.
Okay.
I think Amy's gonna take us off spotlight. Oh, it's my face. I'm going to just quickly share with the group some year-end review statistics, just briefly before we break into networking. I don't want it to be my face. Year in review. So I put together just this quick slide because I thought that some of the attendees would find this interesting. So this 10 has always been a pretty active alumni chapter, but this year we really took some initiative to put together these regular events so that the community would have a way to connect with each other and learn from each other, because I mean, what a year this has been. So we've had 12 virtual events so far. 713 unique community members attended. That is mostly alumni. Obviously, I did the math, and it's just about, you're allowed to bring friends and family to these events. So it was about probably less than 2% was not an alum that attended, but 713 unique attendees. 24 US states represented and 30 countries. So that's pretty cool. And like I said, 2020 was a real year for the books, and brought a lot of, I know, challenges for everybody that are both from a personal and professional standpoint. And so we really hope that these virtual events kind of helped you connect with other alumni and find some resiliency in this year. Just a quick summary of some of the topics that we covered this year that were either COVID specific or not. We talked to some members of our community who are in venture capital and talked about the specific challenges that they faced when COVID happened. So it was at the very beginning. How did they change their investment strategy? How did they help the startups they've invested in be resilient? And we also talked with people from the food and beverage industry and the retail industries about how the landscape for their businesses has changed in COVID. We had a session that highlighted some of our Black alumni who are in the entrepreneurial and technology space as well, and what their experience has been like and hearing their stories. We also did several sessions on how to kickstart your own business as either a female entrepreneur or just an entrepreneur in general, and how to think like an entrepreneur. Something we want to get better at in the next year, because it looks like, well, we'll be doing virtual events for some more time, obviously until we have a vaccine, but even beyond that, as we continue to have events and really connect with other Tufts entrepreneurs, we want to be better about celebrating wins for the community. So at the end of tonight, I'll also talk about our Slack community that we've spun up, which is just a super simple way for us to connect on different entrepreneurial topics or connect with other entrepreneurs in our geographic locations. But some wins that I'll highlight from some of our community, and we want to be hearing more of this from you guys. So either through the Slack community or getting in touch with a member of the chapter to make sure that we share these things with each other. We had a speaker from during one of our food and beverage sessions, Matt Leeds, who brokered the acquisition of Cholula by McCormick, which is a pretty big, he described it as the biggest deal of his career. Two of our alumni, Mike Mealy, I think I'm saying it right, Mike Mealy and Karen Single, launched their startup Vend in Boston and Dallas. And Garrett Weinstein and his company Careful, that is meant to an app to help you find COVID safe dining, launched and drove so much traffic to their site that it actually crashed it during COVID. So we want to definitely highlight more wins like that if in the future you guys want to share them with us. And that is our year in review, short and sweet.